Chapter 20. The Quiet Between Waves. The room Alek had arranged was too perfect. It overlooked the coast, silver-gray water stretching into mist, glass panes catching the light in a way that softened everything they touched. It was a view meant to soothe, meant to suggest rest, distance, safety. Instead, Rowan felt like he'd been set on display. He stood just inside the doorway for a moment longer than necessary, as if crossing fully into the room required permission from a version of himself he no longer trusted. When he finally set his briefcase on the bed, the sound it made against the pristine white sheets landed too loudly in the quiet. Regret followed immediately. The briefcase didn't belong here. It never did. Too solid. Too intentional. Reinforced locks, coded latches. Its very existence clashed with the illusion of ease Alek had so carefully built around him. It was the one thing Rowan never let out of his sight. The one container that held everything he'd spent years controlling. Documents, prescriptions, test results filed under names that weren't quite lies, but weren't truths either. Proof that the world's assumptions about him were irrefutably wrong. Rowan stared at it, unease crawling up his spine. Had Alek opened it? The thought came unbidden, like an immediate warning he didn't want. Rowan forced himself to breathe, to think. Alek wasn't careless. He wasn't intrusive. During the night, Rowan had collapsed. When fever and vertigo had stripped him of his composure, Alek had been focused on keeping him upright, conscious, alive. There had been no questions then, no prying hands. Hadn't there? Before his reason could regain control, Rowan was already kneeling at the edge of the bed. His fingers shook as he entered the code, muscle memory carrying him through motions he'd performed hundreds of times. The briefcase opened. Everything was still there. Files aligned, folders sealed, the familiar order intact. And yet, the top document wasn't exactly where he'd left it. It was barely off. Less than an inch, perhaps. The kind of shift anyone else would miss. The kind of shift that meant nothing unless you were someone who survived by noticing what others didn't. Rowan went very still. Had Alek seen anything? The medical evaluations, written in clinical language meant to erase personhood. The DNA reports, the hormone prescriptions carefully filed beneath a pseudonym. Had Alek seen the truth? That Rowan was not an alpha at all. That the authority he wore so convincingly was an act refined by necessity and fear. He closed the briefcase slowly, as if the movement alone could erase the question. The rational part of him tried to intervene. Alek might have bumped it too hard while checking his pulse. A physician might have moved it to clear space. There were explanations that didn't involve discovery, that didn't involve betrayal. But Rowan had learned long ago that survival depended on assuming the worst before it arrived. He paced the room, steps measured but restless. His reflection in the window startled him. Shoulders squared, posture too perfect, every line of him screaming alpha authority. And yet the cracks were there too. Pallor beneath his eyes, tension in his jaw so tight it bordered on pain. He'd built this version of himself layer by layer, until even he sometimes forgot where the mask ended. Alek, though. Alek had always looked at him differently. Not with suspicion, not with expectation, with attention. That quiet moment before the drive surfaced uninvited in Rowan's mind. The way Alek's eyes had lingered on him. Not invasive, but with intent. As if he were cataloging truths Rowan hadn't spoken aloud. Alek had assumptions. Rowan knew that. Anyone would. But Rowan had never confessed. Never given voice to the secret that shaped every decision he made. And now Alek had orchestrated this break, this rest, disguised as work, wrapped in care so thoughtful it bordered on tenderness. Alek was doing everything right. Rowan pressed his forehead to the cool glass, breath fogging the pain. The sea below was dark, waves breaking themselves endlessly against the cliffs. He understood that rhythm too well. How much longer could he keep this up? The guilt had become constant, an aching companion beneath his ribs. Alek's patience, Alek's quiet protection, the way he made space for Rowan without demanding anything in return. Rowan had told himself it was for safety, that secrecy was necessary, that revealing the truth would put them both at risk. But lately, that justification felt thin. Was the need for safety still about survival, or had it become something selfish? Rowan's chest tightened at the thought. Because if Alek knew, really knew, there would be consequences. Not just for Rowan, but for Alek as well. Scrutiny. Doubt. The weight of choosing to stand beside someone the world would misunderstand. Would Alek suffer because of him? The idea was unbearable. And yet, so was the thought of continuing like this. Of accepting Alek's care while withholding the truth. Of letting something fragile and profound grow in the space between them, fed by silence. When a soft knock came at the door, Rowan startled, heart leaping. "Rowan?" Alek's voice came through, tender and warm.
"You should eat something. They've sent up dinner."
"Thank you. I'll be down soon."
A pause, long enough to feel deliberate.
"Take your time,"
Alek said quietly. The footsteps retreated. Silence returned, heavier than before. Rowan turned back to the briefcase. His hand hovered over the metal clasp, then fell away. He'd built a fortress around himself, carefully, brilliantly, out of necessity. It had kept him alive, kept him in the good graces of his father. But now, standing between sea and sky, with Alek's quiet kindness pressing in from all sides, Rowan wasn't sure whether he wanted the walls to hold, or if he was finally ready to let someone see what they'd been built to protect. Chapter 21. Edge of the Mist. At dinner, Rowan sat across from Alek, posture stiff at first, hands folded too neatly in his lap. The tension between them was dense, charged with everything they hadn't said yet. Alek noticed. Of course he did. "So," he said lightly, ladling stew into Rowan's bowl before serving himself.
"Tell me something that has nothing to do with strategy, responsibility, or expectation."
Rowan blinked.
That's a very narrow category.
The corner of Alek's mouth lifted, just barely.
"I'm confident you can manage."
Rowan hesitated, then sighed.
I like old bookstores. Mom and Pop owned ones, who know your face and don't mind if you disappear into the shelves forever.
Alek chuckled, genuine and low.
You do look like the type who'd vanish into a book and forget the world existed.
Rowan felt the tension in his shoulders ease, just a fraction. He lifted his spoon to taste the stew.
What about you?
Quiet mornings.
Alek replied without hesitation, as if he had expected Rowan to throw the question back at him.
Before anyone needs me. Before the world decides who I am for the day.
Rowan looked at him then. Really looked. Not the composed protector, not the man with gravity in his bones, but someone equally tired of being defined by things he hadn't chosen. They ate slowly. Conversation drifted, deliberately shallow but sincere. Music Rowan pretended not to like. Alek's unapologetic fondness for terrible roadside coffee. Childhood moments revolving around birthdays and holidays. At some point, Rowan laughed, a soft, startled sound, as if it had slipped out without permission. Alek froze for half a second, watching him like it was something beautiful.
What?
Rowan asked, embarrassed.
Nothing.
Alek said, smiling now.
Just nice to hear.
By the time the dishes were cleared, the air between them felt different. Still taut, still alive, but no longer suffocating. Rowan felt lighter, as though some invisible hand had loosened its grip on his body. It revealed itself in his movement, casual and free, like he was slowly slipping back into himself. Not the political campaign manager or the forced Alpha, just human. Just Rowan. Later that night, outside on the balcony along the northern coast, Rowan stared out at the ocean. It was heavy with fog, thick enough to taste. It clung to the pines and swallowed the sea until the world felt reduced to breath, heartbeats, and the narrow strip of balcony beneath Rowan's feet. He gripped the railing as though it were the only solid thing left to hold on to. His hair damp, his shirt rumpled, the careful precision of his appearance unraveling thread by thread. Behind him, the door opened. Rowan didn't turn. Alek's presence announced itself long before sound. Cold cedar layered with something warmer, deeper. Moss. Stone. Ozone after rain.
Couldn't sleep?
Alek asked. Rowan's fingers tightening around railing.
Needed air.
Footsteps approached, slow and cautious, stopping just beside him. Not touching, and that restraint hurt worse than the distance ever could.
You should be resting,
Alek said.
You've been pushing yourself too hard for too long.
Rowan let out a thin, humorless breath.
That's what this trip is really for, isn't it? Rest disguised as work.
That,
Alek replied.
and to remind you that even the sharpest blade can break if it's never allowed to stop cutting.
Rowan finally faced him. Fog moved between them like a living thing, charged and waiting, just like the moment.
You always have a metaphor ready.
I have to.
Alek murmured, stepping even closer.
I can't really say what I actually mean.
The word struck deeper than Rowan expected. He looked up, slowly, meeting Alek's gaze. The light behind them caught in Alek's lavender eyes, turning them molten, searching. The fog thickened between them, a living thing holding its breath.
What do you want to say, Alek?
Rowan asked, and for once, Alek hesitated.
That you don't have to carry everything alone,
Alek said quietly.
that it isn't weakness to let someone see you as you are.
The truth of it burned. Rowan's heart slammed against his ribs.
And what do you see?
Alek stepped closer, close enough that Rowan could now feel the heat of his breath, the pull, the unspoken gravity that had been dragging them together since the moment they'd met.
That you're exhausted, that you're lonely, and that you don't trust anyone enough to let them see you fall.
The words cut too close. Alek's hand lifted, brushing the edge of Rowan's jaw. Tentative. Reverent. Rowan's breath stuttered. His lips parted before his mind could stop him, welcoming what was to come next. Alek leaned in, head tilted, lips aching for connection. Their hearts pounding together in recognition of the attraction that could no longer be pushed aside. Wanting each other so deeply. And then Alek stopped. He pulled back sharply, jaw clenched, breath uneven, and apologetic eyes narrowing as if the withdrawal was a physical pain.
I shouldn't,
he whispered, his tone rough and heavy with restrained desire.
This isn't... Try not to stay out here too long.
The air on the balcony was crisp with scent of salt and wet pine, a clean bite that should have cleared Rowan's head. Instead, it only made everything inside him louder. Below, the northern coast tore itself apart against the rocks, white water exploding into the dark. But Rowan couldn't look away from Alek long enough to see it. Alek stood half-turned, already retreating, already choosing restraint. Rowan felt the loss of the moment immediately. He reached out, fingers gripping the starched fabric of Alex's sleeve.
I'm not an alpha.
The words ripped free of him, raw and shaking, tearing through the quiet.
I'm a beta,
Rowan said, breath stuttering with fear and uncertainty.
I always have been.
Alek stopped. The night seemed to seize, fog hanging motionless, the sea's roar muffled as if the world leaned closer to listen. Slowly, too slowly, Alek turned back. Whatever mask he had been wearing was gone. There was no surprise in his face, only devastation and want colliding at once, something sharp and feral flashing through his composure. The scent of ozone surged, no longer distant or restrained. It rolled off him in a violent wave, electric and alive, mirroring the storm cresting over the coast. Rowan swallowed hard.
My father needed an alpha. The world expected one. So I became one. The posture, the blockers, the speeches. It was all to protect an illusion. I didn't know how to stop.
His voice cracked.
I didn't know how to tell you without losing you.
Alek crossed the distance between them in a single step.
You sure took your time.
The kiss wasn't asked for. It wasn't gentle. It was collision and release. Months of restraint shattering in an instant. Alek's mouth crashed against Rowan's with a desperate, claiming force, like the truth had finally given him permission to stop holding back. Rowan gasped, then surged into it, hands fisting in Alek's hair, dragging him closer, refusing to let the moment fracture again. The kiss was hunger and relief tangled together, breath breaking, teeth knocking, hearts hammering wildly out of sync. Alek's hands were everywhere, roaming and urgent, one gripping Rowan's waist, then his hip to pull him against him, the other buried at the nape of his neck, holding him there to accept the physical confession he had been withholding for this very moment.
I've known.
Alek rasped against Rowan's mouth.
I've always known. I just needed you to say it.
The words undid what little control Rowan had left.
The bedroom,
Alek said, voice rough, dark with need and the promise of something that had become inevitable. He took Rowan's hand, and the man followed him inside without hesitation. The balcony doors slid shut behind them, cutting off the wind and waves, sealing away the last remnants of pretense. The scent of the room shifted immediately, the cold black cedar of Alek's public self melting into something deeper. Damp moss, warm stone, the steady, grounded heat of a hearth long banked but ready to burn. To Rowan, it smelled like safety, like something permanent and secure.
Finally,
Alek murmured, pulling Rowan closer to peel away the transparent scent patch on Rowan's neck. He leaned down, breathing him in.
I can finally smell you properly.
Rowan's breath caught. His own scent, spring rain on paper, surfaced fully for the first time, unmasked and vulnerable. Alek inhaled like a man who had been starved of intimacy, his composure fracturing with every breath.
I knew,
Alek said softly, almost reverently.
That night at the inn, the storm trapped us, remember? You steamed the wrinkles from your suit in the bathroom. I smelled spring rain, not the autumn rain outside, and paper, something fragile and honest. That's when I stopped seeing a campaign manager and started seeing you.
They hit the mattress hard, the cool sheets shocking against Rowan's skin. Alek followed him down immediately, a heavy, grounding presence, all heat and certainty. The scent of hearthstone intensified, glowing, forge hot. No dominance, no claim, just choice. Alek pressed his face into the crook of Rowan's neck, breathing him in again, grounding himself in that clean, rain-soft paper scent. The ozone flared once more, not sharp now, but incandescent, lightning finding rain, fire meeting balance.
If you want to hear what happens after the door closes and the waiting finally gives way, then come find us over on Fables End Story Readings on Patreon. The chapter continues. The one where Rowan and I stop and choose each other. No masks, no roles, just surrender. We'll be waiting.